So this was the brief presentation I was supposed to make at NYU today. But as my late Polish grandmother used to say, and I still kind of say this a lot, it was a balagan in the airports in Toronto, slosh and floods in New York, and I can't control the weather. So I'm now very caffeinated after 16 hours in an airport, but weirdly at peace with the world, thinking about how, well, life may be crazy out there, but with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it's still a really beautiful world. I didn't say that. Max Ehrmann did. That was a nano thought in this mad, but amazing world. Nano research. So what do I mean by that? Nano research means short 10 to 14 question surveys that are distributed randomly and securely to millions of people around the globe to expand access and engage the unengaged, to reach people who don't speak out online or answer conventional surveys of any kind. We really need to hear from those people today. And my vision is to uncover the truth anywhere in the world, no matter how ugly that truth may be. I'll just introduce our company's technology at a really high level, offer a few brief examples of our relevant work, and I'm going to land on a hypothesis that I'm coming to on something that I feel is very important to a country's brand in the information age, but it's rarely, if ever, mentioned. So at RIWI, we constantly ask the world questions using our technology, but we also say we engage the world. Consistently, we hear in the analytics that we do for our clients that one reason many of our survey respondents, millions of people, especially in the Middle East or Africa, answer our questions is because they're so seldom given an opportunity to express their true voice. Now, I know a lot of people in the Valley and elsewhere talk about the Internet of Things and autonomous cars, and that's tremendously exciting. But I feel that the real story about the Internet's prosperity in particular is the growth of the DNS, or the domain name system, the basic architecture of the web. Now, the beauty, and of course I'm biased here, of the RIWI system is that as the DNS grows, that's basically anything that needs web browsers, RIWI's reach expands. RIWI grows in proportion to the DNS. So there's 1 million new sites every day, thanks to the vision of incredibly important, passionate people like Vince Cerf and Sir Tim Berners-Lee. There were about 20,000 sites in 1995 when I invested in my first startup in a basement, very close to NYU, in fact. Now I'm near there in some weird ethereal way now, but I'm not there in a physical form at the moment. And so how can we use this incredible, beautiful thing of the expanding DNS to listen to people who are otherwise unengaged? So thunderclaps, what we call thunderclaps, sentiment thunderclaps, started with what we saw during the Arab Spring. And that told me in 2011, and the folks I'd present to in a wide variety of industries wearing my academic hat, that maybe I've got a viable commercial technology on my hands. We continue to forget how quickly things changed in February 2011, in particular after February 7th, 2011. But as interesting as predicting referenda and elections is, and at RIWI we've gotten a lot of attention to doing that kind of stuff rather well recently, there are things that may even be more important. So on January 25th, 2013, beautiful essay by Gates. He wrote about how he and his wife had been working for 7 years on his amazing initiative, but he hadn't realized until then something that we talked a lot in my own historical research in healthcare and the internet, that continuous measurement of important indicators were vital to assess impact, especially on the global level, and this can be the seed of innovation. And this is something that's said by people like Bill and Melinda Gates, and they talk, for example, and he spoke, for example, about the importance of understanding the quality indicator, outcomes indicator of K through 12 education, and measuring that continuously to find out what works best to ensure accountability and quality. So when we go forward, we kind of think, okay, we think about the DNS, we think about our technology, and we think about this incredibly rich, vast universe of new people every single day who have access to the DNS and the web. And we think about how do we engage these voices, this diverse group of people everywhere in the world, in informing us with new adaptive insights that can be leveraged in secure ways. So the patents and technology I first used for pandemic surveillance tracking perceptions data in 2009, 2010, it's now popularly referred to as random domain intercept technology, RDIT. It works off the architecture of the web, the domain name system I was talking about before, and it works off random data input errors on any browser or any device, such that when people type in mangled websites or websites that don't exist anymore, they can encounter a real registered website that's made active at that moment by RIWI with an invitation to participate and a short survey or message test in a secure form. And these opt-in data are collected in real time globally and fed back to the clients continuously without collecting any personally identifiable information. Now, it's interesting. In the West, people often say, "Hey, Neil, I don't use the URL, the website bar, to access a website." That's not true. It's conservatively, and I say conservatively, about 23% of people, according to Nielsen data that was done on behalf of ICANN, that's the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. 23% of people who prefer to access the web via the URL bar. Hey, you can just Google how do I get my URL bar back if you want to check it out. And that's their preference. They access the web in different ways, of course. But it's been stable at around 23%, more or less, since the late 90s for many technical and other reasons. And they do access the web in other ways, but the navigation bar is their preference, and it can be increasingly their preference on mobile. What's actually more interesting is that it's also increasingly the most trusted way of accessing the web due to a variety of trends on the web for over 15 years, including so-called clunkiness of web content accessible through search. And some people actually attribute the rise of fake news to this phenomenon, but I feel there are a wide variety of other reasons for this. Okay. So I don't input mangled domains or type in websites that don't exist anymore. I hear that from lots of people. That's not true. So whether it's our own academically published data, registry data, domain holdings data, data from IT firms like Sophos or website branding companies like Fairwinds, it's all of us on every browser, every device at least some time. That do input mangled domains on a website when they're trying to access a site that may or may not exist at that given time. But surely nobody answers those RIWI questions that are posed on these rotating ephemeral websites everywhere around the world, do they? Well, a lot of people really do. And who we get and who we've got responding since 2008, 2009, way pre-commercialization, is a vastly more diverse, random, global group of people who answer RIWI questions or get RIWI'd every second of every day. Vastly more diverse than people who answer paid surveys on panels that land in their email box that can look like phishing attacks, answer surveys on media sites with lots of noisy ad units, people, I don't know, you may know some of them, I don't, who answer phone surveys during dinner, people who answer those short SMS texts that they also think are scary fish attacks, or who post meaningful, and I mean meaningful, decipherable content on social media or on blogs. So 400 million since 2009 is actually a very conservative number in terms of the number of web users who have given RIWI partially completed or fully completed survey data. So what can we do with RIWI technology, and how does it apply to country branding? We've exposed video treatments. This is really interesting. You might find this interesting, using control groups and non-controls across the Middle East to examine what people believe before and after the video about how ISIS treats women and girls. This is, of course, a very sensitive and challenging subject to talk about, But as I said, our singular purpose, my singular purpose, is to figure out the truth, no matter what that truth may look like. And so, in order to promote what we call global relatedness, we worked with our university and our government partners to enable people to compare their own views with those of people in the Middle East. How do I look at the role of women and girls vis-a-vis those in different parts of the Middle East? Working with the World Bank and hosted by the UK's Cameron government, we examined country openness, and we probed the degree to which countries demand openness and transparency. And a country that does so, our data suggests, tends to be one that the world trusts. Working with corporates like Viacom and nonprofits around the world, we're now the largest data collector on attitudes and policies towards LGBT people and related issues. In 70% of the places we probe these issues, it's actually illegal to even be gay. So country tolerance is something that we measure continuously and we feel is an important indicator on a lot of important things. Now, my own personal background is in mental health research. I've written about it, written books about it. I've suffered myself from some mental health challenges historically. Our global 200 country academic paper on people's attitudes to those who suffer from mental illness received a lot of attention in the scientific community. But like a lot of our data feeds, we haven't had the time we need to dig into all the potential public policy ramifications of our findings. And so what's interesting, on this slide and the slide prior, is you see Ireland performing the best, right? And other countries here performing not so well on our measures of stigma. And you have huge sample sizes. And the countries on this slide versus the slide that I just showed you, they spend a greater percentage of their health dollars on mental health. They have a well-described comprehensive mental health program generally. They have generally greater numbers of mental health personnel. They tend to be wealthier countries with higher standards of living and certainly have more publications and research in mental health. Correlation doesn't equal cause, but it's an interesting finding, and it's driving me toward a conclusion, or a hypothesis rather. So what does all this that I've just talked about tell me? Well, these case examples that I've shared with you. I'm landing on a hypothesis I'd like the world to consider. And there's three things here. A country's brand, I feel, is positively collinear with how its society regards its most vulnerable citizens. Optimism and positivity toward people who suffer from stigma, ill health, or abuse can reflect and reinforce a country's brand. And in a twist on a startup tech rule, kind of tech rule 101, but focused on countries and not startups, I'd say that global reputation isn't everything. It's the only thing. So that's me and how to get in touch with me. I'm still tired. I'm still thinking about Max Ehrmann. I'm cold and caffeinated in Toronto a few days before Passover and Easter. So I'm thinking this. I'm thinking that we are children of the universe. Just Google this so I have the right text. No less than the trees and the stars. We all have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Happy Passover, Chag Sameach, and Happy Easter.